Hi, my name's John. I'm a sinner. So I have work to do. Actually, God has work to do, but I get to be a part of that with him. And so this is a journey of hope as well as of pain. The worse your story, the warmer you're welcome in his community. And your life may be a mess, but your mess will be your message. So what we're looking at today, as we journey through the 12 steps, is the ninth step: having become willing, having made a list of everybody we have harmed, we make direct amends to all we have harmed, except where to do so would cause injury to them or to others. And I want to get to how do you kind of make a list that can help you make this a doable task. But I want to start with the question, where did that idea come from, making amends? And of course, like all of the 12 steps, ultimately, we find its roots in Scripture. This is what is written in the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament. The Lord said to Moses, if anyone sins and is unfaithful to the Lord by, and now notice the list, deceiving a neighbor about something entrusted to them or left in their care, or about something stolen, or if they cheat their neighbor, or if they find lost property and lie about it, or if they swear falsely about any such sin that people may commit, when they sin in any of these ways and realize their guilt, they must return what they have stolen or taken by extortion, or what was entrusted to them, or the lost property they found, or whatever it was that they swore falsely about. So it just covers all kinds of ways in which we can harm people, materially, emotionally, spiritually, by omission or commission. They must make restitution in full, add a fifth of value to it, and give it all to the owner on the day they present their guilt offering. And of course, this is to be done not grudgingly, but with a willing heart, because it's what love would do. In the book of Proverbs 14:9, it says, fools mock making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the upright. And so there's the contrast. Fools mock it. Why should I do that? There's more for me if I don't have to do it. The alternative to that kind of mockery and withholding of amends is goodwill, where I love the other person, so I want to heal, I want to repair. I have a good friend who's 2 years old, and I'm at the point in life where there's somehow bruises on my skin all the time, and pretty much every time she sees me, she'll look at my hand or my skin someplace and say, you have an owie. Yes, I do. And then you need a Band-Aid and you need a kiss, because that heals the owie. So making amends is the Band-Aid and the kiss. And the purpose of it is to bring healing to our community, to the person that I have hurt, but also to be transformed myself. Because when I go to make amends, I see more clearly what I have done from the perspective of the other person. Now, historically, the making of amends has been taken very seriously by people who seek to follow Jesus. But for whatever reason, it is largely overlooked, not talked about in our day. People devoted a lot of thought to how do you give wisdom and guidance in making amends, to repair relationships, to restore as love would do, and to be transformed yourself. One of the books that talks about this is called The Medieval Handbooks of Penance. And it's not likely to make the New York Times bestseller list anytime soon. But in the ancient world and throughout most of the centuries in the history of the church, making amends was taken very, very seriously. This is from the beginning of this book. The documents translated in this book were employed in a religious discipline to our forefathers during their transition from paganism to Christianity and from barbarism to civilization. With peculiar intimacy, they reveal the faults of people and of society in a far-off age, as well as the ideals of the church, those who sought to follow Jesus, on whom responsibility was laid for the guidance of soul. They formed, therefore, a priceless record of one important stage of the perennial conflict of ideals with realities that marks the progress of human beings toward the attainment of a moral culture. And can I just say that's part of the gift that you and I have living in this day, a culture that has been shaped in deep ways, not nearly enough, but in many and deep ways by the touch of Jesus. And in particular now, as we look at this, at the notion of forgiveness and the presence of grace and the value of community with everybody, love, including love of enemy. And then they go through all these different ancient guidelines to help people understand what kind of penance should I do. I'll just give you a couple of examples. They will look funny to us. If a cleric, religious leader, somebody like me, commits theft once or twice, that is, steals from his neighbor's sheep or hog or any animal, he shall do penance an entire year on allowance of bread and water and shall restore fourfold to his neighbor. If, however, he does it not once or twice, but of long habit, he shall do penance for 3 years. And one of the interesting things is, if you go through these guidebooks for penance, and you probably won't, you see it assumes that people, including people in religious leader, are capable of all kinds of horrible acts, theft, murder, anything, as well as stuff that is more common to get talked about publicly in our day. If a cleric is wrathful or envious or backbiting, gloomy or greedy, great and capital sins are these. They slay the soul and cast it down to the depths of hell. But there is this penance for them until they are plucked forth and eradicated from our hearts. Through the help of the Lord and through our own zeal and activity, let us seek the mercy of the Lord and victory in these things. And then it goes on. Envy. Guilty of that anywhere? Anyone who is envious or malicious or offensive to his brothers, let him ask pardon penitently and earnestly of him whom he has offended in envy and malice. And let him do penance on bread and water for as long a time as there had been hatred in his heart. If evil has resulted from this envy, if the other person has experienced loss in some way, financial or by reputation or so, let him, the wrongdoer, pay as much as was lost by his fault, if it was in the form of property. If not, let him ask pardon tearfully and penitently. Anyone who is guilty of envious fault-finding, ever do that? Or anyone who loves to hear it. I never say it, but you come to me. If you can't think of something nice to say about somebody, come sit next to me, as Alice Roosevelt said. Let them do penance for 4 days on bread and water, and let them make amends to the person against whom they make mischief. If it is against one who is set over him, the mischief making is directed, 7 days penance is imposed thereupon. And one possible alternative to this is that they would recite 150 Psalms naked. So they're serious going after this. Now, we're not going to use those kind of guidelines, but you'll want to think and probably get counsel from somebody if you need to make amends. What will count as an amend to the person that I have harmed? And then one other piece of wisdom here, when you're getting ready to go to people, you might put their names in one of 4 categories. This is wisdom not original with me. Folks who work with 12 Steps a lot will talk about this. When it's time to make amends, I can put people in one of 4 categories. Now, I'm ready to go to them directly right now, make amends. Later, not quite prepared yet. Maybe I will and maybe I won't. And then 4 is never. So if you have your list, if you're working on this, if you're trying to figure out how can I get some forward progress, just those 4 categories. Now would be a situation where it's quite clear that I want to do this, that I need to do this. This is probably going to be something that is not going to require major repair. Today, it's a rainy day where I live. In our little driveway, one car will back in the other car, and my car was backed in, so I took my wife's car, but I didn't say anything, and I talked to her a little bit later on. She had tried to call me because she said I had to go someplace. My umbrella was in my car. Now I had to go without my umbrella someplace. And instead of just saying, I'm sorry, I should have told you, I came up with reasons why, because her car parked me in, I was justified. It's just so stupid to not simply be able to say, of course, I'm sorry, I should have told you. So Nancy, I'm sorry. Should have told you. Okay, that's a relatively small thing, I think, that can be repaired. We'll find out. Later is when it's something that may take more serious thought. I think about in my marriage a pattern of withdrawal and punishing that extended over years. And when it finally came to a head and when I finally was able to see it more clearly, that was not just a comment. That was not just an apology. That was going to take a considerable amount of time and work and effort and conversation and repair. And so that's something that I won't be ready to do it yet because I won't be able to do it well yet. That's going to be a later. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. In some cases, it might not be a helpful thing with folks, and I may need wisdom or guidance around this. For example, I worked for most of my work life as a pastor at a church. Periodically, somebody might come up to me after a church service and say, Pastor John, I'm going to apologize to you. I've never liked you. I didn't like it when you came here. I like the sermons of our old pastors better than I like your preaching, and I feel badly about that, so I want to apologize. Well, that was not terribly helpful to me. That person needed to do that work, and maybe they were doing step 4, and so, but that's a case where there had not been direct damage done to me in any way, and you need to do that work, but you don't need to tell me about it. You can do that work with another trusted friend or counselor. And then step 4 is never. There will be some cases where this may be required. For example, I hurt someone and they're no longer alive. And here we might talk some in the next video about the idea of indirect amends. Or if there's a marriage situation and there's a spouse that's abusive, that's physically violent, and the other spouse has to get out of there and get safe, it would not be second for that person to go back to the abuser and try to make amends, even if there were things that they themselves had done wrong. It would not be safe to do that with an abuser. If that is you, get out, get safe, but don't engage there. It may be the case that there'd be another person where I have done harms with them, but they're not a trustworthy person. And if I were to go back to them and talk about that, they could use that conversation to create damage. Could be to me, could be to somebody else. Or maybe you're in a relationship where there's been a betrayal. You have betrayed, but it's not known, and you'll need wisdom from a counselor or somebody. Do I make this known, or would making it known cause more damage than it would do good? So these are areas where we need guidance from God. Now, later, maybe, never. The key thing is to be willing and to act as God guides, because God has given us this gift of amends. And they are the Band-Aid for human community. They are the kiss of love that can bring healing. And so this is your day. Keep coming back. It works if you work it.
Hey, you just finished a video from our series Steps, which is based on John's new book, recently released, also called Steps. So you could pick that book up anywhere that you like to purchase your books, or find out more information about it at becomenew.com. If you're someone that would like to start practicing, doing the steps with a friend or a small group or your church, we've created a web portal for you that should get you all the resources you need to get started. You can just go to dothesteps.com. We are a community that's dedicated to growing spiritually in Christ one day at a time, and a big part of that is prayer. So there's a team of us that meet each weekday, Monday through Friday, to pray for Become New and for viewers just like yourself. So if you have a prayer request, you can send it to us at 855-888-0444 or email it to us at connect@becomenew.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.